Yes, guys. So this is chapter number 4, guys. Unit 3. Those are trade negotiations. International trade agreements as such are not merely negotiation between two countries as such, guys. There are a lot of lobby groups, there are a lot of economic groups, non-governmental organizations that will pressurize the government, that will want the decisions to be in their favors. Now, guys, depending on the type of agreements that the countries enter into, the classification of regional trade agreements are: the very first one is a unilateral trade agreement. We do not consider the impact on the other countries. We do not regard the other nations at all. It is like a one-way agreement. It is not subject to negotiations as such. You will commonly see that developed countries would give preferences to developing countries. That can be regarded as a unilateral trade agreement. A bilateral trade agreement is an agreement between two countries, one country and a bloc, two blocks. They will specify the rules and regulations for trade in goods, trade in services, investment related measures. Jo bhi hai, guys. It can be a free trade agreement. It can be a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, SEPA, comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, preferential trade agreement, jo bhi hai. Under a free trade agreement, it is everything except this. Under a preferential trade agreement, they will specify a list, only this bolke. And then there can be a regional preferential trade agreement, guys. So this is basically a common agreement as such, guys, between a couple of countries as such, that would give preference, guys, on a reciprocal basis. So I told you we have the general global system of trade preferences among developing countries, in which India is also a member. Trading bloc as such is basically a group of countries with a common free trade agreement. All of them will have a free trade agreement between themselves. Free trade agreement does not mean that there are no trade barriers at all as such, guys. There will be trade barriers, but then they mutually decided. They try to reduce those trade barriers, guys, or they're literally zero trade barriers, and they may apply a common external tariff. Free trade area is a classic case. Free trade area is where there's free movement of goods and services, no tariffs as such, guys. Now this is between US, Mexico and Canada, guys. Customs union is a free trade area plus common tariff, guys, when they deal with the external world as well. Under a free trade area, US, Mexico, Canada, they can decide their own rules when they're trading with the external world. But for a customs union, there is free trade area, plus there is also a common tariff, when they're dealing with the external world. Common market, there is free flow of output and free flow of factors of production as such, guys. Free flow of factors of production, guys, between the nations. That's a common market. When they have a common market plus also a common currency, it becomes a monetary union. I spoke about general agreement on tariffs and trade after this. I told you that after the World War II as such, guys, countries realized that they will have to promote international trade for greater efficiency, for increase in global output, for increasing the efficiency, economic efficiencies of the country, for increasing the economic activity in multiple countries. So this agreement was signed in by 23 countries in the year 1947, guys, provisionally applicable from the year 1948. Initially only 23 signatories, remember, guys. Now GATT was only a provisional agreement, guys. The original intention was to create international trade organization, but then that never materialized because the USA had issues with a lot of countries. There were a lot of rounds that were conducted under general agreement of tariffs and trade, guys. It was only during the 8th round that a lot of issues got settled, because agreement on trade and services, agreement on intellectual property rights were never covered by the original general agreement on tariffs and trade. Initially the concentration was only on reducing tariffs. Later it gradually shifted to reducing all the non-trade barriers, guys, all the non-tariff barriers as well. So it took a lot of discussions, guys. It was only during the 8th round, the Uruguay round, which started in the year 1986, was supposed to be completed by 1990, but concluded in the year 1994, that a lot of issues got actually settled. This also paved the way for establishment of World Trade Organization. Under GATT as such, guys, there were few informal agreements between few members, which were referred to as codes. Even they were ratified, guys, and agreed to by all the members in the Uruguay round. GATT lost its relevance, but as I told you, it did not cover service and intellectual property rights. There was no consensus on agriculture and textiles, guys. The merchandise trade was increasing by leaps and bounds as such, which also led to an increase in trade and services, and that was beyond the scope of GATT. There was no proper dispute settlement mechanism. There was rapid globalization, fast evolving markets, guys, and investment measures were not covered. Uruguay round ka baare mein bola main. Under Uruguay round, guys, which commenced in the year 1986, first 2 years rapid success, because a lot of tariffs were reduced on tropical products favoring this developing countries. They've agreed to revise rules for dispute settlement process. They've agreed to more transparency on trade policies. This is where all the members were required to report their trade policies. But, guys, major issues between the USA, guys, and The European Union was settled in 1992. USA and the other countries like Japan, Canada were settled in 1993. Finally, beta, it concluded in the year 1994, and that paved the way, beta, for establishment of World Trade Organization. World Trade Organization, beta, they talk about only 3 agreements, but then I included 4, beta, here. There's General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. There's General Agreement on Trade and Services, that is GATS. There is agreement, guys, on trade aspects related to intellectual property rights, that is TRIPS. And then, beta, there is agreement on trade related investment measures, TRIMS, beta. So all of these, guys, are basically under WTO, guys. GATT abolished new, beta, it just came under the umbrella of World Trade Organization. There are 6 objectives of World Trade Organization. You are supposed to remember this. First one, beta, is to set and enforce rules, beta, for international trade. The second one, beta, is to resolve trade disputes. Third one, beta, is to provide a forum for negotiating, guys, and further liberalizing trade. And then, beta, is to increase transparency, beta, increase transparency, cooperate with other major economic institutions like IMF, World Bank, help the developing countries, beta, to benefit fully from the global trading system. If you talk about the objectives of WTO agreements, beta, it is full employment, it is expanding global trade as such, beta, it is increase in real income. If you talk about functions of WTO, beta, it is to provide a forum for trade negotiations, guys, administer trade agreements, review the national trade policies, beta, assist developing countries technically, guys, provide them support, and cooperate with other international organizations. Structure of World Trade Organization, beta, 3 levels. You have the ministerial conference that meets once in every 2 years as such, guys, and they can cover any aspect, beta, of all the multilateral trade agreements. Under that, beta, you have the General Council that meets multiple times in a year, will cover day-to-day work. It also meets as the Trade Policy Review Board and the Dispute Settlement Board. And then under that, beta, there are 3 councils, guys. Council, Goods Council, Service Council, TRIPS Council, guys, that will oversee their respective areas and report to General Council. There's a WTO Secretariat as such, guys, who's supposed to be of integrity, who's supposed to behave professionally, guys. The best part about WTO is that every nation has 1 vote, so there is equal say. That developing countries also, beta, has equal say. If you talk about World Bank, beta, USA has 16% vote bank, 16% vote share, guys. The guiding principles of WTO, guys, I told you, remember the few important principles. The first one, beta, is to trade without discrimination. Most favored nation principle. You give preference to one nation, you will have to give preference to all the nations. There are certain exceptions to this as well. And then, beta, national treatment principle. Treat foreigners and locals equally as such, guys. Once a good enters your country as such, beta, you can levy customs duty. We have no problem with customs duty, but once the good enters a country, you should not be differentiating between a foreign good and a domestic product. And then, beta, freer trade gradually, beta, through negotiation. We are not expecting you to implement everything immediately as such, guys. You can see, beta, that GATT initially concentrated on lowering tariffs. Then, beta, they moved on to non-tariff barriers also, guys. And they included services, they included agriculture, they included investment related measures, intellectual property rights. More time was given to developing countries, beta, to adjust to all of these measures. There is predictability, beta, through binding and transparency. Binding का मतलब होता है, beta, commit to bound tariff. Transparency, beta, is by disclosing your national trade policies. Greater competition, they said, beta, if there is requirement of most favored nation, if there's requirement of national treatment principle as such, guys, then you also need measures on anti-dumping duties and subsidies, guys, to protect, beta, to ensure that there is no trade distortion. Encouraging development and economic reform, guys, this is to support, beta, the developing agreements. Then there is a long list of WTO agreements, beta. I told you, just remember a few agreements. Also remember, beta, the agreement on agriculture, beta, basically address issues in relation to market access, in relation to domestic support, beta, and subsidies, but not major, beta, reforms have occurred, beta, on this. And then, guys, there's local content requirement and plurilateral agreements. That is agreement between only few members, because all the members are not agreeing to it. Doha round, beta, this was the 9th round, beta, since the World War II. First round, beta, since your WTO. The primary objective, beta, here was to promote developing countries, guys, provide them greater access to world trade, global trade. Then, beta, here there's lower trade barriers as such, beta, lower trade barriers, revise all the trade rules. They covered 20 areas, beta, 20 areas. This was at the 4th ministerial conference, guys, which met at Doha in the year 2001. 25 years of WTO, but if you talk about the achievement, 4 times increase in global trade in nominal terms, 2.7 times increase in real terms. Your overall, beta, tariff has reduced, average tariff has reduced from 10.5% to 6.4%. There has been a significant increase in global value chains, that is people, countries, operations, beta, through multiple countries. 70% of the world merchandise, beta, that is traded belongs to these global value chains. There has been an increase in the purchasing power of people, guys. There has been increase in the economic growth of developing countries because of global value chains. The members who have joined late also have seen, beta, rapid increase in their growth rate. And, beta, the 33 1/3% beta of the people were under below the extreme poverty line as such, beta. Now it is only 10%. And then beta we spoke about the issues, guys. Issues, general issues beta, and also the issues that are faced by the developing nations. The first most important issue beta is that your anything beta in relation to World Trade Organization would require beta, the extent would require the approval of all the members as such, guys. So it is a time consuming process. So regional trades as such beta, regional trade agreements have become a convenient alternative to this. All of them beta enter into regional trade agreements. Regional trade agreements are complex. There are too many agreements beta. There are too many agreements. And then beta, in the field of agriculture, textiles and apparels beta, there has been negligible improvement, almost negligible improvement only as such, guys. Doha round mein jo bhi tha beta, it has run into problem and may not be implemented successfully, guys. Uruguay round mein whatever they thought beta would be implemented in relation to developing countries never materialized. If you talk about developing countries as such, guys, they think beta that the developed countries as such, guys, follow levy very high duties as such, guys. They are not giving market access, and then it is not beneficial to few underdeveloped countries as such beta. There is escalating tariffs, and then they say beta that in the field of agriculture, textile and services, there has hardly been any improvement. There is this north and south divide. North, I've been repeatedly telling you beta, covers your North America, guys, covers European Union, covers your Russia, and south mein beta African countries, South America, India, China, other Southeast nations. So yes beta, that's it. This is what we've covered in this chapter. Keep revising, guys. I'll see you guys in the next class. Bye bye, guys.